Good evening, everyone. Let me begin the meeting by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadundee and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. We'll declare the meeting open at 5 p.m. This agenda briefing session is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up on the recording. Agenda briefings are open to the public to attend and observe, but any questions, deputations, petitions will all be presented at the ordinary meeting, the ordinary council meeting. There will be no debate-style discussion from councillors as this takes place in the ordinary council meeting when the issue is set for decision. In attendance tonight we have myself, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Alexis Davey, Councillor Anne Mitchell through Teams, is it? Oh, okay. Councillor Lisa Glover, Deputy President Lisa Glover, Councillor Peter Gubler, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor Anita Lindeman and Councillor Deanna Shand. The staff present are our CEO, Nick O'Connor, Acting Director Finance and Corporate, Lauren Clifford, Director of Operations, Roscoe Marshall, Administration Officer for Corporate Services, Samantha Farquhar, Principal Planner, Cecilia Muller, and Manager Development Services, Michelle Dennis. And I'd like to welcome those attending in the gallery and anyone attending via live stream. We have no apologies for this evening and no approved leaves of absence. Would the councillors like to request any leave of absence?
But I probably do it short, wasn't it?
For future?
No, we normally deal with that as part of the OCM, and they can provide me with that as well.
Okay. We have a few announcements that are coming through me to the community. On the 14th of March at the Bailing Up Hall at 7 p.m, there is a play being presented called The Lighthouse Girls Saga, and tickets are available on a link I've got here. I'm not even going to attempt to read it out to you, but I'm sure you'll see the flyers around, and it may have a QR code, or else you can find the link online. On 22nd of March is surprisingly the 25th anniversary of the Donnybrook Library, and from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. on the 22nd of March, they are having a celebration to which everyone's invited. And then from the 5th to the 20th of April, the Blackwood River Arts Trail is being held, and for the first time they'll also be running a film festival with the assistance of the Bailing Up Arts and Cultural Hub. On the 11th of April, we're again holding Brookfest, which is our Youth Week event, and it runs from the pump track from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. On the 12th of April, the following day, the Bailing Up Small Farm Field Day is being held at the Bailing Up Oval from 9 till 3:30. And on the 19th of April, the Donnybrook Apple Festival will be held at multiple locations from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Moving on to declarations of interest. Do councillors have any declarations to declare? Okay. Public question time, you can see those questions and answers all through there. And if there are no questions regarding public question time responses, we can move on through to item 7, confirmation of minutes. At item 7.1, looking at the ordinary council meeting held on the 18th of December 2024, the minutes. Any questions, councillors? Item 7.2, minutes of the special council meeting held on the 7th of February. Are there any questions? Item 7.3, special council meeting held on the 29th of January. Any questions? And item 7.4, annual general meeting of electors held on the 3rd of February. Are there any questions? Councillor Glover?
I'd like to just ask a question about one of the questions that was taken on notice from that meeting. Did the executive of the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up have a look at the budget adoption at the, I'm not sure if it was the ordinary council meeting, I thought it was a special council meeting on the 24th of August 22 about the rate increase?
2023. That, sorry, what was the question?
Did anybody have a look at the answer to that question that was raised, which was a similar question?
Actually, I didn't pick up on that, the year. I thought it was a subsequent year. But that question has been answered previously. I think it was at the 30th of August 23 meeting.
I raised that question myself, yes. The answer that I did receive was different to the one that's been provided to the public.
CEO, did you look at that?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much, through you, Shire President. Look, I don't really want to interpret or misinterpret what was being said before. I can, however, give you an assurance that the information that's provided there as a response to the question on notice from Mr Sercombe is accurate.
Thank you, CEO. Moving on to item 8, reports from committees. Item 8.1, we have a report from the South West Regional Road Group meeting held on the 25th of November. Do we have Councillor Mitchell with us? Okay. CEO, would you like
I just
to
wonder
comment
whether
on that,
Mr Marshall wanted to make comments, especially around that item, around some potential cost shifting or perceived cost shifting from the state government.
Thank you, Madam
Director
President,
of
if I may.
Operations. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's probably prudent just to highlight to Council that Mainroads WA are reviewing alternative options to deliver their bridge program. One option is they identified as a number of bridges where work may be delivered by the local government associations. South West Regional Road Group have written to Mainroads seeking clarity and solutions around the associated risks. Mainroads WA have responded, and the Regional Road Group will consider the response at the next meeting. The Mainroads have obviously always been pretty helpful with bridges. We've experienced that recently, so they're certainly not looking to provide any sort of undue impost on council. I just think everyone should be aware of it. They're looking at it, they're discussing it through the right committees and channels, and we'll keep an eye on it just to make sure that any risk to council is considered.
Thank you, Director of Operations. The next report is 8.2, the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils meeting held on the 10th of December 2024. I attended the meeting and so did the CEO. One of the highlights of that meeting was the UCH event, a presentation by one of the, I can't remember the lady's name, but it was regarding the global gravel cycling event that's being held in Nannup with, I can't remember the extraordinary number of cyclists that were there, but when you think of the cyclist and the entourage, was it 3,000? Yeah, 3,000 cyclists and entourage. It was quite a huge event, and they will be here leading up to the event and be spilling over into neighbouring shires. That and the Southern Forest Valley Tourism Conference that's coming up, there was requests around venue registers from each shire and looking at a tourism register for those for all those different venues we have throughout the region. But each of these requests is requiring some work from our tourism resource in our shire, of which we have none. So this work is falling largely on the CEO. Would that be correct to say? And
Yes.
yeah, and the commercial opportunities available and the economic development opportunities are considerable. Yeah. Councillor Gubler.
Just in relation to that last bike event, I'm sure it was in November, there a lot of the businesses in town bought up stuff and they didn't actually get any extra people to their business through that event happening in town here. So that's a comment I heard from some of the businesses. So.
That tourism event was held in Nannup, I think. Is that the one you're referring
No,
to?
no,
Peter?
in Donnybrook here.
Oh, the Tour of Margaret River.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my question is, you know, that some of the people, you know, businesses in town didn't really benefit from that event, that's all.
Yeah, they seem to be
I
quite
don't know whether you had any
self-sufficient. CEO,
feedback
did
to
you want
that
to
or
comment
not,
on that?
I was just going to say, yeah, look, I certainly, as you've outlined, Shire President, I attended the meeting, and I think there really is a strong regional focus to drive the visitors and the stays and increase the visitation and economic development throughout the whole of the Warren Blackwood region, realising that the event will predominantly be in Nannup and surrounds, but there's a coordinated approach, and they've obviously given the constraints on accommodation and associated infrastructure in Nannup. There's a really strong push for the neighbouring shires, including the likes of Balingup and Donnybrook, to have a coordinated approach and to work with the tourism operators to make sure we maximise the opportunity at a regional basis.
Director of Operations.
If I may, and just to help respond further, Councillor Gerber, to your observation, which I'm certainly don't have anything different to say, but from what I understand, that event you're referring to was a Cycle Touring Association event last year, and it was a bit of, for want of a better word, suck it and see for them. It was a pilot. They have confirmed they want to come back this year, which is really good, and they're also making inquiries, and I'll just read it from some notes if you don't mind. They're looking to see who can help with catering, and also ask for contacts for volunteer groups who could help them. They're looking to hire out VC Mitchell Park, Pavilion 1 and or 2. They're also looking to use the kitchen for food preparations for male and female cyclists, sufficient for at least 100 people. So, yeah, I think that's good news.
Councillor Lindemann.
Will that be going onto our calendar of events, which also feeds into the Chamber of Commerce to alert businesses for the coming event?
Director of Operations.
Yeah, if I may, when we get the application, most certainly.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Not a question, I apologise, I just want to add, so importantly for the Nannup race, it's part of the UCI World Championships, and next year the World Championships is actually being held at Nannup for the 7 gravel. So the likelihood of the attendees this year is going to be significantly more in order to try and qualify for the World Championships in Nannup next year. So the numbers that they're anticipating coming through for next year are even bigger again.
Was it 3,000 for 26?
Well, the race is capped at 2,000 for 2025 for the 7 main event, and then they'll increase, it's my understanding. But
Yeah.
it's a good race. I've done it a few times, and yeah.
I'll have to get the right numbers. And, I think you've done 3,000. Yeah, okay. Okay. So if there's no further questions on the reports, we'll move into item 9.1.1. We're moving into reports of officers, Director of Operations. And the first is 9.1.1, development application P24056, extractive industry for sand, lot 751, Donnybrook Road, Beelarup. And I believe, Director of Operations, you have Cecilia, Principal Planner, presenting.
Yes,
on
thank
this
you,
topic.
Madam President. If I may, I'd like to invite Cecilia up to give Council a briefing, not only on this application, but other couple, and we'll obviously wait for your prompt for the other presentations. Sam, sorry, you're in the process of bringing up a PowerPoint. And again, this is sort of just following what we've tried to do in the past, is sort of give you, our councillors, a bit of a snapshot ahead of the item, and then given the complexity, questions ahead of time would be lovely.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. Councillors and the applicants are here as well, so it's good to have them in the room. Is the presentation on? So the first map that I've got on here today is just sort of to give you a bit of an overview as to where we are at in relation to other extractive industries. So the extractive industry for sand is at lot 751 on Donnybrook, Boyabrook Road. Then close to it there is an existing extraction for sand on lot 100, which is operated by the same operator, Donnybrook Civil Earth Moving Contractors. They also have a gravel pit at Charlie Creek, on Charlie Creek Road, which is wrapping up now soon. Only a stockpile of gravel that they're still removing within the next 3 years. And then the other application that's on the list for consideration is towards the south, which is on Goodwood Road, lot 100 Goodwood Road, and that's a gravel pit. So just to give you an idea of where those are. Then council has also seen the Edward Stroud pit that was approved and the Morrissey pit that was approved last year. Just also for your information, there is a current application that's being advertised for Donnybrook Stone. So that just gives you an overview of what's happening in this location. So with regard to the lot, you will see that it is actually split in half, or not half, but there's a northern part and there's also a southern part to this lot. And then there is a lot that's owned by the Shire, where the Pony Club is, that's got this bit of a dog leg, I would say, access that links up with Frontino Road. But lot 751 currently doesn't have access, and that will also be addressed. I will talk about that a little bit further as well. So the lot is zoned general agriculture, similar to other lots to the east of it, and it is an A use. Extractive industry is an A use in the zone, so it can be considered subject to council giving approval. It's a pit that they're requiring or requesting 10 years of extraction. Then the volumes that they are seeking are annually 180,000 tonnes of sand, depth between 1 and 4.5 metres. So that's the information provided with the application. We are talking about 4 stages here. The first stage, basically in this area here, the vegetation that's green will remain, and then a second stage, a third stage, and a fourth stage. There's also a 20-metre setback along the boundaries of the lot. And regarding the road concerns, this lot is currently landlocked, or the section on which the extraction is proposed. Therefore, council has to consider with this application to give permission for the applicant to use the northern section over the Shire lot that links with Frontino for light vehicles. That's what the Shire Works and Shire officers have considered, light vehicles along the northern axis, and then at the bottom end to have access here, very small portion of the Shire lot that runs here, but to have access over that to this unmade or unconstructed road, which is going to be called Road A in the report. The applicant has provided civil drawings for the construction of Road A and also internal roads that they are planning on their property. But the big question is, how would this lot be future-proofed in future to have access? And that can be a separate matter, separate from this application, for the applicant to come back and ask council formally for some easements over the Shire lot. But that can be dealt separately. For the purpose of this application, it's just allowing permission to use part of the Shire lot for access purposes. So the southern access would then be used for the carting of the sand, and that links up with the with Sand Hills Road. And the engineering or the works and services have requested that Sand Hills Road also be maintained 50 metres either side of the Road A, just to make sure that this intersection is maintained for the life of the development and when they finalise the extraction. So currently this is what Sand Hills Road looks like. It is in a good condition. This photo shows you what the unmade road or the unconstructed road looks like at the moment. Through the application process, there has been a couple of submissions received, 4 submissions on those submission forms that supports the application, and then also submissions from agencies, and also shy comments regarding certain aspects of the proposal. So when you look at the conditions, they have come about from the comments that we've received from the different agencies. You will see DPIRD have requested a proper weed management plan, and that is based on the fact that there is a declared weed on the lot. So they have provided or requested that that needs to be addressed properly. Department of Health has requested a dust management plan be prepared. So that again is a condition, and I've marked the numbers of the conditions next to it so that you can get an idea of what those are. DPIRD, DBCA and DOER have all informed us that a clearing permit would be needed for the development on site prior to the works commencing, as well as for the construction of that unmade road. So this would need to be dealt with by the applicant separate from the development application. And to my knowledge, I have seen a clearing permit application come through for comment, but usually DOER would wait for a decision from council prior to them making their decision on the permit. The applicant, DBCA, have requested that where there's vegetation retained, that there be a 10-metre setback from the crown drip line of those trees. So that again has a flow on into the conditions. And DOER has mentioned that also separate from this application, there would be potentially a requirement for a works approval from them. Then there was concerns from DOER regarding the depth of the pit, and because there's some discrepancies in the information that was provided by the applicant. Urbanize had some information, and then Structure Consulting the different or other information. So DOER has just requested a recommended condition that we clarify exactly where that ground level, where the water sits, and that can be confirmed prior to the works commencing. Then stormwater management is also a concern. With all of these extractive industries, a proper stormwater management plan is always what we need prior to the works commencing, and DOER has flagged that. They've also requested that the applicant provide confirmation of a secured water source, and again, it's not unusual to see that on our extractive industry application comments received from DOER. The rehab plan does need a bit of a additional information regarding the species to be planted once rehabilitation commences, and other little bit of detail that was lacking in that. So the rehabilitation plan has been conditioned. We've spoken about the site access. There's several conditions relating to the access, and then also there was a lack of information regarding noise impacts as well, and the impact on the sensitive receptors. So having a good acoustic report and then a noise management plan is good contemporary practice for these extractive industries. And then other requirements like for the operating hours and not operating when there is a bus on the road, that's fairly standard across all extractive industries. So that's just a bit of background. So when you read the application, hopefully everything will make sense. Are there any questions relating to this item?
Councillor Lindemann?
Yep, I'm not particularly good on maps and much better on the ground. Is there a possibility I can get a lay of the land? I'm unfamiliar with the site.
I'm sure.
Are you indicating a site visit, Councillor Lindemann?
I certainly am.
Thank you. Director of Operations?
I'm sure we can coordinate that, Madam President.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Davey?
I have about a dozen questions, so just one at a time? Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Great. So has the site been determined to be dieback infected or dieback free? Because that needs to be done before it's cleared.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Thank you.
Cecilia?
There is a condition for them to address dieback, but there isn't a condition for them to confirm that prior to commencing work.
I note that there is a condition for them to confirm it when they're doing rehabilitation, but that seems to be a little late in the process.
I suppose that is to also address, through you, Madam President, to address if there's any soil being brought onto the property at a later stage as part of the rehab. Yes.
Thank you. Cecilia? Are there any... Councillor Davey?
Could I have a few small questions regarding dieback? Can I just ask?
Yes, you can
Given they're all the same
sequent them,
topic?
yes.
Yeah, thanks. So the DWER references a DBCA guideline around dieback management. I notice in some of the conditions where a guideline's been recommended as like a standard to follow, abide by, it's included in the condition, but for dieback, there is no standard or method of practice referenced in the condition. Was this a conscious decision?
Through you.
I'll let you keep going.
Okay. What I'm hearing is that an advice note may be suitable to address your concern, to refer to that information.
So the DWE response referenced the best practice guideline by DBCA.
Yes.
If it goes into an advice note rather than the condition, is it binding on the applicant, an advice note?
I suppose for them to have a condition that they need to consider dieback, and that information just informs them how they need to go about, similar to some of the others, that would be sufficient.
With the conservation status of this adjacent land, it seems to be important to determine if dieback is present and the best way to manage it before the clearing permit gets approved, for example. So that's where my questioning was coming from. But that's all I have on dieback.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I will take that on board. Thank you.
Councillor Lindemann? Sorry.
I read somewhere about a turkey nest dam or something. What's the water required for? How much do they need? So what's the dam required for?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. It is usually for dust management and other operational practices on site, and that's why they've mentioned that there will be a dam potentially constructed. But again, that is also covered under the condition relating to the water source. So the applicant would need to demonstrate how much water they need, and then also how they intend to provide for that. And that then usually has some information feedback from DWER as well, because they will have a look at whether that is sufficient and whether they would be in support of the dam, if that makes sense.
Just dam of what size? And it's on sandy soil, so I'd imagine that may require soil to be brought in a clay form to create a dam. So I suppose I'm just, a little more information in that area about the proposed
Water source.
dam,
Yeah.
water source size, that sort of
I
thing.
can seek further information because I don't have the detail regarding that turkey's nest dam. Yeah.
Councillor Patrick.
Probably more of a question on process, I guess. In the section that refers to biodiversity from one of the reports, it talks about that there is black cockatoos are listed as having foraging and breeding habitat within Lot 751. It goes on to say the proponent should be aware of their obligations and that they should seek advice from DBCA Species and Communities Branch prior to clearing works. My question is, when clearing application is put through, does DBCA have, do they look at that component, or are they separate units within DBCA? So one will look at the clearing approvals just in relation to the trees themselves, or do they at that time take into account, the potential species of the cockatoo, or is it something that we can put into our conditions to ensure that the proponent actually follows those steps and processes? I guess, it's just checks and balances. Does DBCA make sure that happens before they issue a clearing permit, or is that just on the proponent to make sure they do the right thing?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Cecilia.
That will be covered by the clearing permit. So the clearing permit is granted by Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. They've already referred it to the Shire. I'm very sure that they will refer it to DBCA as well for input along those lines. But in our response as well, we can provide all the information that forms part of this application to DWER in response to their request for clearing. Yeah, but I can't think that they would not, also request comment from DBCA. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Glover. Councillor Shand.
Mine's pretty similar. I guess because there's so many moving parts here, we don't have all the information. It makes it extremely difficult to make a decision without all that information. So I know we do it upon the conditions, but when you don't have all the information, it's very difficult to do that. So leading on from that, am I hearing correctly that if we put a road in, would we have to create a burden of easement as a council and potentially lock up any future development coming off that road?
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
At this point in time, they're not asking for an easement, they're just asking to have access over part of the lot. In future, if they come to the Shire with that request for the easement, I suppose it would determine on what the conditions of the easement would stipulate and whether it's just to have access over it. It's not a land, it's not closing a part of the lot and on selling it. It may just be in the form of an easement, so a right of access over the Shire lot, if that answers your question.
Yeah, kind of. It just leads into, we have Shire-owned land there, so that would mean that they're traversing it, and how would that affect any potential development?
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
Yeah, it would definitely be a separate application requesting the easement. At this point in time, we know that it's very unlikely that the Pony Club at this point would use the southern access, because we know the Pony Club is using the Shire lot, and there's some agreements being negotiated ongoingly. But at this point, using that southern point is it's not impacting anything at this point in time. They are proposing also to have access along the northern boundary of that southern part, but that will only be for light vehicles. And again, that's just to travel over the road and not to make it part of their lot at all, or not to sterilise it for anyone else to use. So it's just using it, not buying it at this point in time, not as part of this application, but a separate application for an easement or something similar, maybe considered more in depth at a later stage by council. It would definitely have to come back for council to consider that.
Okay, can I follow on?
You may.
Thank you. So with that in mind, so I can understand, like Councillor Lindeman, the lay of the land, if the Pony Club has access, I think, from Frontino Road, is that correct? So they would then become landlocked if they took the southern, so they would, it would kind of block the movement from that lot or not?
So, Shire President, can I just intervene? I might just get Mr Clifford to outline the current tenure arrangements, or if indeed the Pony Club's using that parcel. Do you mind?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to let you know that the recent advice from the Pony Club is that they have disbanded and they aren't using or intending to use that land. The current licence lease agreement that we did have has well and truly expired.
Thank you, Acting Director, Finance and Corporate. Just a moment, just a moment.
All the same question.
Councillor Shand.
Sorry, so it's still the same question.
Another
So if
question?
they're not going to use it, the southern end of that is what we're talking about? The road?
On this plan, it's this little bit which they just want to access over. The unmade road is the one that they are going to construct. But this is the little bit, I think it's like 30 metres by 20 metres, or maybe a little bit more than that. And they just want to access over that because the actual lot runs up there and then towards that end. So this section here is proposed for light vehicles to access the lot via Frontino Road, and then their vehicles, the carting of the sand will occur via this section here, coming up and doing what they need to do and then leaving again. So it's only really using this little bit where at the moment I think the main access anyway to the Shire lot is via this leg here, because Frontino Road does exist and it's just, and this is like a battle axe sort of going to our lot or to the Shire lot. But down here, because this road is not constructed currently, you can't actually access it unless you have a 4x4. So it's really very difficult to access there.
Thank you, Cecilia. Councillor Davey, Councillor Glover.
Thank you. I have three questions, but I'll just ask one at a time. My first one is just in the financial implications. It talks about a bond of $20,000 is required to be paid. I'm wondering, is that just, I know that it's quite standard for our Shire of Donnybrook to actually put that bond on, but is the bond, can it be increased? Just because it's about rehabilitation, the rehabilitation is likely to cost a lot more than $20,000. Is that amount's been set like that for quite a few years? We know that everything's gone up in price. Could the bond amount potentially be increased?
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
On that, I would actually recommend that as officers investigate what a more contemporary bond would be, instead of just blankly making a decision now on increasing it, but rather do some research and come back to council with some suggestions around that to make sure it's
I'll pass that over to CEO O'Connor.
And probably a question through you, Chair, is my understanding that this has been raised in previous sort of deliberations by council around the bonds, and that my understanding that there isn't, from a policy position, a nexus between the amount of the bond and what this potential scope of rehabilitation works would be. So it's more just an assurance and a security. There isn't that nexus between the scope of work.
Thank you, CEO. Just on that note, my question, if I can just jump in, my question is around the rehabilitation plan as well. Contemporary is a good word to use, but I'm looking to perhaps have more context around the rehabilitation plan and the costings around that would indicate the size of the bond we would need, such as soil testing. Am I right? My question is, with general agriculture zoning, do we need to have the land returned to its original, do we need to restore it to its original condition, original productivity?
I don't think the intent would be to the original productivity, but in this instance, pasture. If you look at the lot, it was a vegetated lot. On the photos that I've got, it's more scattered vegetation rather than just being used for pasture. So that sort of indicates what it is currently. There's vegetation which they need clearing permits for, and then there's these open areas. So
we would be restoring it to its original position at best? Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Just a real quick one that I couldn't see through the report, and great report, thank you. Is there any visual, can you visually see it from the main Donnybrook-Boyup Brook Road? Will you be able to see any extraction or anything? So I can see it set back and quite a reasonable way back, but I topographically can't tell the lay of the land. Will you actually be able to visibly see it from the road?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Councillor. When I was on the site, basically this photo, in the far distance, you can see vehicles travelling there, sort of in the distance. So this may be the highest part of the lot. I think if you are on the escarpment across from there, you would see extraction occurring. At one of the later stages, maybe not the first stage. I think the first stage you may not see anything, but as you progress towards that stage 4, then it may be likely that you would. Excuse me. There's also a proposal from the applicant where they have actually commenced planting along Donnybrook-Boyup Brook Road.
Thank you. Councillor Lindeman.
Thanks. Through the chair, I'm obviously not in the industry of sand or building or crushing, or I don't really know the demand for the product. So I guess my question is this a resource, a necessary resource, highly in demand, required around our area?
Director of Operations.
Thanks, Madam President. If I may, look, I've answered this question before anecdotally because I don't actually have any data on it, but from a commercial aspect, we are aware that pretty much any resources that make up roads or housing, so hence sand, particularly clay sand, which this is probably not that clay, but sand, clay sand, gravel, and some sort of other rock forms as well that form our road bases are highly sought after. And you only have to look at, we've all had cost increases in life, but if you look at the cost increases in resources, that tells you the market is demanding these resources. The two big projects we've talked about before with the bore and the Busselton bypass just have really sucked a lot of resources out of our industry. So for us, from a Shire point of view, to have economical resources on our doorstep, I see as advantageous to council. So again, I hope no facts, but anecdotally, I'm pretty confident with that.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, I just have some questions regarding groundwater. So I noted that there was a little bit of a discrepancy between the advice notes around groundwater monitoring in the gravel application versus the sand application. I just wanted to understand the differences. So for this application, the groundwater level is measured anywhere from 0.9 metres to 12 metres below the surface. And noting that it's likely to be spring and summer operations, spring being when the water table is at its highest, I just wondered why there is not a condition in this permit requiring that some survey bores, piezometers, something that is permanent enough to last the life of the project, would be installed to ensure that they're maintaining the 2 metre groundwater separation from the pit base, to be read August to October. So it's more specifically required in the second application, whereas this application seems to have shallow perched water, groundwater table, and it doesn't have that requirement to maintain the 2 metre pit base to groundwater separation.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Yeah. I will take that on notice and get back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Glover.
Thank you, through the chair. My question is around the urbanised WA Engineering Solutions report. Page 6, note 2.3, it's around the Aboriginal heritage, saying that it's not noted. My wondering is that has anybody or has there been any inquiries with the Aboriginal Court to have approval for excavation due to it's a digging down of the site? And my understanding with the Aboriginal heritage would be it's on top of the ground type of report that's been made, but when it comes to digging down, there's different permissions that are required by the Aboriginal Corporation because you're digging down in the site.
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
So there isn't any Aboriginal heritage place identified on this property, and that's why it's not a requirement. Usually, if there's no place on the property, then that's not required to be done. Is that?
Councillor Glover.
May I have a follow-on question? Just because there's nothing on the top doesn't mean there's anything underneath. And any digging down now involves Aboriginal Corporation permission to excavate. Has that happened?
I will take that on notice and confirm with the department if that is required.
It's
Thank
the
you.
it's the Aboriginal. Sorry, can I just clarify? It's not the department. It's the Aboriginal Corporation, and the Aboriginal group is Nala. Exactly. So they are the ones who would provide that permission.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Are there any further questions? Councillor Davey.
Just a really minor point, it says that the annual report is required on the 30th of December, which seems quite restrictive for the proponent. Is that generally the wording, or is it meant to be by the 30th of December?
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
It would be by, and yeah, we could change that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey.
When DPIRD was contacted for comment, that seems that they've been silent regarding the suitability for agricultural use post-extraction. Is that the case? Were they asked directly around the suitability of the site for agriculture post-extraction, or were they not asked and they just didn't say anything about it?
Thank you.
It is referred to them for their comment, so I would assume that if they had any comment to make, that they would provide it at that point.
Councillor Glover.
Final question from me. I also note on 2.10, the fire management, I've kind of felt that that was a bit vague in regard to that, considering how cautious we are around fire management. So I'm wondering if there would be any clarity or any response from our CESM around any kind of evacuation plans or anything like that. And then final other point connected is it just says there will be portable firefighting unit. I understand that all the machines will have some sort of unit on them, but it doesn't sort of indicate what our guidelines are around fire management as well. And I guess we're so cautious around fire management, I just found that this report didn't actually articulate that, and then it spoke about the Chief Fire Officer and not our CESM, so I'm not sure about the clarity around those two roles as well, and if we would get any clarity around it from our CESM.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Director of Operations.
Thanks, Madam President. Councillor Glover, can you just guide me to the note you were referring to? To so it's on the attachment. And just for clarity, it refers to the Chief Fire Control Officer? Yeah, that's the correct designation. So the Chief is ultimately responsible, as delegated by Council, will take advice from the CESM, but has ultimate control and authority.
So do they, sorry, may I just kind of, because then the other part about it was the portable firefighting unit. It just doesn't elaborate on how that will be provided, what size, what kind of, there's nothing in there that says that. It just says it will be a portable firefighting unit will be on site. So is there any way that they're going to make it so it's like when we have, I suppose I'm using the events as an example, we're cautious around evacuation and making sure that there are fire units, doesn't actually articulate how it's going to look when we're there. If we were to inspect it or have a look at it, it just kind of says a portable firefighting unit.
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Happy to take that question on notice. So we'll establish whether it's a bucket of water or 500 litres on the back of the ute. That's hopefully it's the latter.
Any further questions? Oh, Councillor Davey.
Just for clarity, so is weed management being undertaken by anyone at the moment? And part of the question is, I note that rehabilitation needs to be completed within 2 years and that weed management is going to happen twice a year. But at the completion of rehabilitation, I assume it's immediate that they want to hand back. Who would be responsible for ongoing weed management of the site after the disturbance?
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Can I just clarify the question? Who will be responsible for ongoing weed management after extraction? Are you talking about...
After rehabilitation.
After rehabilitation, so after the 2 years? After the 2 years have lapsed?
My reading of it is that rehabilitation has to be done within 2 years, but if you finish rehabilitation, there will be ongoing weed management requirements.
Yep.
So who will do those? Because they'll get their bond back.
Yep. So that would be the landowner that then has that responsibility ongoingly, as any other landowner at that point would.
Thank you. I have one question. Hopefully it's for your sake, it's the last. With the contract, the volume that's available, is that extracted within this 10-year licence, or is it possible for the licence to be extended? I guess, is that volume everything there is to be had, and that will be excavated in the 10 years, or is there more?
The information provided is that this is what they're going to do on an annual basis. So
Times 10.
times 10. We have experience with other extractive industries that it may not be within 10 years that everything is removed, and then the process would be for the applicant to come back and lodge another development application similar to the Maza pit, where we then have an opportunity to look at all the conditions again and give them a fresh development approval, because after 10 years the application will lapse and the applicant will have to reapply. So whether they are going to physically remove all the product within the 10 years, I suppose it's very difficult to get an answer on that anyway. It's based on where the demand for the sand is.
Yep.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And a rehabilitation plan would have that. There would be room to adjust the rehabilitation plan within that requirement, because it would be staged.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Thank you. Well done, Cecilia. You can do it all over again now. Item 9.1.2, development application P24066, extractive industry for gravel at lot 100 Goodwood Road, Upper Capel. Cecilia, would you like to introduce the item?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Oh, it's not moving.
It's not leaving.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. This one is for lot 100. Earlier on, I've sort of showed you where it's located, towards the south of Donnybrook. It's also zoned general agriculture, and I'll just talk to the picture. So with this proposal, there's two stages. There's a cell 1 and cell 2. Currently on this property, there is an existing shed sort of at the end of the access and a dam. The applicant is proposing to use the existing access and go through the bush, through the natural bush towards the cell 1 and cell 2. The proposal was again referred to a number of agencies, and Goodwood Road is under the control of Main Roads. So Main Roads have seen the application and recommended that the current access is moved 40 metres to the north, and that the first 50 metres of the driveway is to be bitumen sealed. That's right. That's the little blue line that I've indicated. So basically they will come in and through the bush and towards the site office with the cells either side. So on this property there is only a shed. There is a dwelling next door. These two properties belongs to the same landowner. There's also, it's in close proximity to Donnybrook Stone, where there's Donnybrook Stone being extracted. There's a residential development, a rural residential development, not too far away, and the property is surrounded sort of by state forest, which I suppose is also why it hasn't attracted a lot of objections. There weren't any objections against this proposal, so that's just giving you an idea of the lot. I'm still not moving. Something wrong.
Computers down there. Which computers?
It's just not moving, this little cursor.
Do you guys will it help to take that
Is
down?
it?
There we go.
Is it?
Might be just a
working.
distance.
Too much.
So just if you zoom in a little bit, these are the cell 2 and cell 1. The applicant is also proposing a landscape buffer with a bund, because at the moment it is a couple of 100 metres from Goodwood Road, but there is a sort of a gap in the vegetation that you can briefly see the lot as you drive along Goodwood Road. So you have two stages. The volume here is less than the sand extraction. Again, the proposal was referred to a number of agencies that provided comment back. In this instance, DPIRD was satisfied with the weed management as suggested in the report, so we didn't recommend a separate weed management plan. There's a request for a dust management plan. DOER has looked at this proposal and identified that dust management and noise management lacked a lot of detailed technical information, so it's needed to condition those. Again, they would need a clearing permit for going through the natural bush. The applicant has indicated that there is a track and there's limited trees that would need to be removed. So that would be basically here. But again, that would be for DOER to consider as to whether that is acceptable. If that's not acceptable to DOER and a clearing permit is not granted, then the applicant would need to provide a different proposal as to how they access the cells, and that would then likely have to be reconsidered as part of an amendment to the application. Again, DBCA has requested a 10-metre setback from the crown drip line of vegetation. So this photo was just taken from the front of the lot, so that means possibly just having a bit of a setback here to protect these trees as well. And on the lot on the closer to the cells, DOER has said that it's a prescribed premise and they need to follow the process of getting the works approval for that, or if it's likely, the applicant needs to contact them. There was the discrepancy in the depth of the pit floor or further information required by DOER. So in consultation with DOER, a contour plan will be prepared and approved. Then stormwater management is conditioned. Talk about the water source. In this instance, the applicant indicated that they will use the water from the existing dam. The existing dam that's located here in the middle there. So that again would need to go to DOER to confirm that that is appropriate for use. Then the rehabilitation plan will need some refinement. We've talked about main roads requirements for access. What I have noted in the report, however, is that condition 24 refers to condition 23, or needs to refer to condition 23, not 22. So that will be amended in the final document for the agenda. Further to that, it's fairly standard. The consideration of both the extractive industries, just as a summary, it's both on general agricultural zoned land to be returned to pasture. DPIRD didn't have any objections to either of them. Agency submissions are addressed through the imposition of conditions. The conditions are fairly standard. You've seen other applications come through, so you are, I think, getting an understanding for the conditions. It is a valuable resource to be extracted, both of them, sand and gravel. Each application have to be considered on their own merit, so even these applications in relation to other applications that's come across the table, each application on its own merit. I just want to sort of talk about the extractive industry license process as well, because from an officer point of view, what happens with these applications is that once council has determined the extractive industry application and granted the land use, there are all these conditions that need to be complied with. Once the applicant have complied with all those conditions, then we can grant or issue the license, because that means they've now complied with all their conditions, we've got all their approved plans, and they can now go ahead and start operation. So that's just the difference or the process. There are obviously ongoing conditions as well that they need to comply with all the time, and that's how we process them and make sure that the operator has got the license at the end of the day. Any questions?
Any questions, councillors? Oh, sorry, Councillor Shand. Councillor Glover. You're so generous.
Finally, I just don't want to repeat myself around it, but my 4 questions that I asked in regard to the other application, I would like to table those questions again, with the exception for this one. I believe that the Aboriginal Corporation may be the Carrie Carrack Corporation, because it's right on the border of that as well, so it might need to be the 2 corporations that may need to be contacted. So one was about the bond, the other one was about the fire and whatnot, and the other one was about the the Aboriginal Corporation being contacted as well. Maybe 2. Thank you.
Did you get each of those?
I just want to confirm what the 4th one is. I've got the fire truck, the Aboriginal Corporation, the rehab bond, and what was the other one?
Please excuse me, there were 3 questions, not 4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Councillor Shand.
Thank you. You've already mentioned that your conditions don't perfectly line up with the vehicular management side. So can I just confirm that where Department of Main Roads has stated that it needs to be moved, that it needs to be bitumised, and that they will need to submit an application, there's no reference to submitting an application in those conditions that I can see. So are you saying that will be rectified going forward, or?
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
Are you talking about a condition for the crossover to be constructed to Main Roads standards? Is that what you are asking?
Yeah. Because it's just, to me, quite brief. It just says it needs to be constructed in the first 50 metres, but it doesn't talk about its repositioning or the fact that they will need to submit an application to Main Roads. That's in Main Roads email.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So that's condition 23.
Yeah, 23.
So prior to the commencement of works, a new crossover is to be constructed for the use of the extractive industry operations. The new crossover in the first 50 metres of the driveway inside the property is to be bitumen sealed and at the applicant's cost to the satisfaction of the Shire in consultation with Main Roads. So the process is basically that we can... the recommended conditions cannot be something for Main Roads to clear, but we can make them party of the condition. So all these conditions needs to be to the Shire satisfaction. The way the conditions are worded is to include the agency that made the comment, so that the information that we receive go back to them. And at the end of the day, Main Roads would need to be happy with the way that they construct the crossover, but it's still, if there's a stalemate at some point, the condition is still the Shire's to clear.
Okay, I'm just reading their email, and they say they will need to submit an application to Main Roads. That's the clarification I'm seeking. They say.
Yes.
Not
So
us.
they may have a separate process for an applicant to seek approval from them, and that will flow back to the compliance with this condition, but it's not our condition to clear. For them to do works in the main roads road reserve, they would need the main roads permission. But again, that's separate. It's sort of like the clearing permit. It sits separate from this application.
But they're tied in.
Councillor
sorry.
Muller.
They're-
CEO.
I was just going to say, just to clarify, in 23, they're tied in by the specific reference around satisfaction of the Shire in consultation with Main Roads. That's a trigger point for referral back to Main Roads, and then they would go through whatever their approval processes are. So it's implied.
Thank you. Have you got a follow-on question from that, Councillor Shand?
Yes.
Okay, off you go.
So that's implied, but then we refer to other requirements by other government departments and their links. That's why I asked that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. This is sort of in conjunction, I guess, with Councillor Glover's question. I note on this particular application, the applicant has noted that they have contacted traditional owners and stated that, you know, that there's no heritage there. Can you confirm, my understanding is that once the new act was actually repealed, there isn't a requirement, if there's nothing, no heritage site listed, there isn't a requirement to go back to the what was going to be the LACHs if you're going to dig. So I thought that was under the new legislation, but then that was repealed and it reverted back to the 1973 legislation, which didn't have that requirement in it. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Just a moment. No. Okay. Cecilia.
My understanding is the same, but I will clarify that. I've taken it down, so I will get back to you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lindemann.
Thanks. I just want to ask, I don't necessarily need to see this block if I can see the lay of the land from the road. Is that possible?
Cecilia.
You can't see much, and I can arrange a site visit. I intended to do that with the applicant, but the gates were locked and we couldn't get hold of the landowner. So I can put a request in.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I would be interested, but I have had a text from, Councillor Mitchell that would also be interested. And I'm going to make that a question by, would you be happy to accommodate 2 individual councillors to visit these 2 sites? Thank you.
So I think through you, Shire President. Sorry. I was going to say there'd be a standing offer for an opt-in for all councillors, and if we require additional vehicles, we can make that arrangement. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have, the same questions before. I would ask, and if not for this application, but the rehabilitation plans, if we can have a broad costing or a stepped out set of actions with a broad costing that we could index so that we knew at the end of 10 years, indexed financially using our financial formulas, so today's value, net present value today, can we then organise our bonds around that? Is there, it may not be for this application, but it would, CEO? Oh, sorry. Mr Marshall.
Madam President, if I may, with regards to bonds, the process is not to cover the cost of the rehabilitation.
No.
It's the policy as we sort of operate under at the moment, not necessarily a written policy, but what we're operating under at the moment is we hold a bond so we can manage compliance. So, for example, if the licence holder doesn't follow all the conditions, particularly rehabilitation, we use that bond for legal proceedings. So that's the use of the bond at the moment. It's not to cover the works, just for a point of clarity. But what I do agree with you is I think we should really look at this in more detail and contemporise what we're doing with a policy. It would be really helpful for us as officers, and I think also for applicants, but I wouldn't like to do it on the run.
No, not for this one.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
not for this
okay.
one. I agree. And thank you for clarifying that it's not to cover the cost by default of the rehabilitation, it's for the legal costs, because that wasn't how I was thinking. So thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Well done, and well done again, Cecilia. If you hang around, you can do it again. Okay. Item 9.1.3, development application P24076/77 for asphalt art, Collins Street and Reserve Street in Donnybrook. I'll just throw this out to questions, taking it as read. Do councillors have any questions? An amazing report. I love the concept. Looks great. Any questions? Okay. Item 9.1.4, development application P24. Sorry. CEO? Councillor Davey.
Sorry, I saw 9.1.4 up there and you were speaking about 9.1.3, is that correct?
I've just moved on to 9.1.4.
I had a question around 9.1.3.
Back up to 9.1.3.
Sorry, I had two quick questions regarding that one.
Yes, Councillor Davey.
Are the works valued at over $20,000?
Who would know the answer to that? Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. We don't have I do remember seeing a bit of a breakdown in the detail, as in the whole project is worth probably around $25,000. The cost of the works is obviously a bit less because there's traffic management, which is a huge impost. So I'd estimate the cost of the works is probably $15,000.
So I asked because it mentioned that it didn't need to come to council if it was under 20. So, and a related question, if I may have a second question.
You may.
Yeah. Was whether the template traffic management plan that's been developed by the Shire could be used in this instance, therefore reducing costs below the 20,000 threshold.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Operations.
Definitely not. We can't use the existing template for the reasons that it be a total road closure, at least a half road closure. A lot of coordination with main roads because of it being unofficially an alternative heavy haulage route, so we can avoid going through town. I think that probably answers the bulk of the question. Yeah.
Thank you. Just on the question of the big loads that come through Collins Street, would they be notified not to do that while the...
Yes, Madam President. Part of the permit process and consultation with main roads, or effectively approval by main roads, would be a system where they, they'll put it out to all of the operators what's going on and when, so they'll know during that period of time if they need to divert that it's not available.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on 9.1.3? Item 9.1.4, development application P24070, Bailing Up Fruit Winery Cellar Door, Lot 62, Unit 1, 33 Bridgetown Road in Bailing Up. And I believe, Cecilia, you're introducing this report.
Thank you, Madam President. With this one, I don't have so much information like the extractive industries, but yet again, it is important. So the crux is basically the fruit winery is operating their cellar door from across the road where they also make the wine. They just want to move the cellar door sales to across the road where the visitor centre is, and basically the visitor centre will go in where they are at the moment. So the proposal was referred to the strata members and to other surrounding landowners, and an objection was received. It is from one of the strata owners, the one next door, just raising concerns about the current strata management and insurances, and mostly matters that are not dealt with under the planning framework. But the matters that we did look into was basically whether the existing effluent disposal system is satisfactory to accommodate the cellar door sales, where we need to remember that in this instance, it's not a restaurant where they are providing food, so they don't need to provide any ablutions. They do have a glass washer that will be used once a day, and there is a toilet for these two strata units, but the intent would be for people that need the facilities to use the public facilities available across the road. There is a small parking area, and for this property, it's only 48 square meters. So under the scheme, only 3 bays are required for them to provide, and we are recommending that those 3 bays are marked out and just re-gravelled so that they are in a better state than they are at the moment. It's just linking it back to the specific operator, not to be unfair to request the whole of the parking area to be upgraded if this property is only 48 square meters. So the effluent disposal, unfortunately, I did not, once I received the information that the effluent disposal was sufficient, I didn't delete condition 2, so I will just be updating that report so that it doesn't have condition 2 requesting the applicant to upgrade the effluent disposal. And with regard to the other applications that I've also spoken about earlier, there's just the first application 911. I needed to mention this earlier, but I'm just going to include a little bit of extra information in the officer comments section for that item as well regarding the access requirements. Back to this proposal, it is something that's supportable. Officers have contacted the Liquor and Gaming, who previously issued the liquor license, and there's no issues with the wine being made on the premises across the road, and them reapplying for a license here to operate from this premise.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Councillor Gubler.
Just in relation to the those 2 premises, are they owned by the same person, or is it different landholders?
It's different landowners, so the winery has bought Unit 1 of the strata. Unit 2 next door is owned by a different landowner, and then the bigger lot is owned by a different landowner again. So it's, yes.
So
Thank
just
you.
in relation to those, are they allocated parking bays where the business centre currently is for that, on that piece of land? That's what I'm sort of related to.
Is your question, do the other strata owners, are they allocated parking bays?
So where the current visitor centre is, are they allocated parking bays there currently now? Or is it, I don't know how big the land goes, so
Okay.
does it go beyond, how much does it go beyond the building there? That's what I just
Thank you,
wanted to know.
Councillor Gubler.
Thank you, Councillor. When I looked at the approval for these 2 units here, Strata 1 and then the unit next door, it looked like they had approval originally next to the building, to the east of it. When the strata that followed was approved, there was a small an allocation for parking in this area, sort of covered by the red wording, and that's for these 2 units here. So it was originally allocated to this side, but now through this planning or this new application, this is now opportunity to just request the landowner in the area that's allocated for the strata development, just to upgrade the parkings that will be used by this current, by the Salador.
Thank you, Cecilia. CEO?
Probably just a question through you, Shire President. To what standard are we requiring the car parking to be upgraded to? I missed that in the report, my apologies.
It is currently gravel, and we just want them to re-gravel it and then to mark it out with line markings somehow, either with rope or another way.
Thank you. Councillor Lindeman.
So this is just a move from a front door cellar, which they've already had, to another building across the road. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Davey.
Are we being consistent in our requirements for car parks to be sealed for cellar doors?
Consistent with?
The requirement for car parks to be sealed or gravel for cellar door facilities?
Okay.
I have not dealt with another cellar door in this area, and because it is currently gravel, the intent is to keep it gravel, but just for them to upgrade it a little bit.
Is that because the condition is poor currently?
Yes, that's what the condition reads like.
Councillor Patrick.
So with that particular car park, I know that at certain times it is blocked off. So during certain events and things, it's blocked off by the current owner, I believe. So medieval festival, things like that. But obviously, back to, I guess, Councillor Goobler's question, the car park itself is separately owned to the buildings. That's correct? So that's owned by one landowner, the car park. The buildings, the individual units are owned by two different landowners. But if that's the case, then I guess, could you clarify when you said before that part of this planning process is to incorporate some of those parking bays to be specifically allocated to each of the units, which means they will then be owned or open for use by those strata unit owners and not be able to be closed by the owner of the car park on those event days if need be?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick.
I will clarify, thank you, Madam President. In the report on page 69, there is a very small figure 2 that shows the strata development, and there is a right of carriageway that's marked A on that plan, and that's to the benefit of units 1 and 2. So units 1 and 2 that are located basically where the green roof is, that is their parking right of carriageway. They can use that.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Patrick?
So I guess through you, there's certainty of tenure that indeed if we put this on as a condition that it will actually be used, and they do have right of way and carriageway to use it as a car park because it's now commercial use. Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor
Yeah,
Shan.
sorry, just thinking that through. I'm trying to get this through my head. So if you're allocating car bays because this person has moved from one side of the road to the other and purchased this building, and it's a strata, is not the other tenant, do they not benefit from what you're asking someone to do? So would it not be a strata that's been asked to do this?
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
It's linked to the use of part of that strata to unit 1 that needs to have 3 bays. I would presume that the owner would have conversations with the other strata people just to make sure that if she's going to upgrade 3 bays, that they will be happy with her upgrading those and identifying it as her bays. That would be the intent, to ask her to upgrade the whole of the parking area. I don't think that would be fair because she will be doing works that's not linked to her development. So to be fair, it was only requested that she provide 3 bays.
Thank you, Cecilia. Any further questions? Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 9.1. I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh,
Hang around.
so
I'm definitely going to hang around, but thank you. Well, that's really your question.
what a great job. Did you actually break for Christmas, Cecilia? I'm just joking. Did you actually break for Christmas? So, councillors, moving on to item 9.1.6, proposed speed zoning changes. Oh, sorry. Request for consent to mine exploration activities, Reserve 2052 and Reserve 22860. Correcting myself, this is item 9.1.5. Director of Operations, would you like to introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam President. I think it's good to recap, even though we have obviously provided a previous report and workshop and a consultation with DEMAS. So just in summary, so the previous report was presented at the September 2024 ACM. It was withdrawn by the officers to seek further information to better inform Council. An amalgamation of queries from councillors and officers was issued to DEMAS in September, with a response received on 9 October from DEMAS, and that's at attachment 9.1.5 in brackets 4. DEMAS also attended a workshop with Council in November 2024, and as a result, and hopefully understanding Council's position, the following report and executive recommendations are provided for Council's consideration. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Roscoe. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Davey?
Just I guess, one of low consequence from me. Objective 9.3.1 of the council plan, which we've got the 6 monthly update coming later in the agenda. I note that there's been no progress on an item there to work with WA Planning to advocate for the development of the Sandhills industrial area for light industrial use. Given that that is the intent, I guess the community's intent with what to do with that land and what's been gathered previously, will that be referenced in any correspondence with the Minister?
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Operations or CEO, who would like to take that question?
I think we'll take it on
CEO?
notice.
I'll take that one on notice, but I think off the cuff, if that's obviously codified in Council's agreed position and Council's plan, so I think that would need to form part of any correspondence. That's clearly Council's intention.
Thank you, CEO. Any other questions? Councillor Lindemann?
Yeah, I'm just asking when they talk about the vegetation, existing natural landform. I declare this is one of my favourite running places, and there is very unique vegetation in the area that only appears at a certain time of year. So my question is, how would they determine that they were rehabilitated unless they monitored at that time of year that it was rehabilitated to the same standard and appearance as it was?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. You did say mining, this is exploration.
Madam
Director of
President, if I may, look, I do recall us chatting about this previously, and along the lines of probably adding a clarification note that there should be some sort of seasonal inspection. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it is also a walk trail, and many people visit to see species indicative to that area, obviously namely orchids, kangaroo paws, etc. So I guess my question has to be, you can clear land and for all intents and purposes right now it just looks like a bit of scrub, but all of a sudden at a certain time of year it looks like an oasis. How do you return an oasis?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we'll definitely take that one on notice, and I'll have a chat to the officers. Maybe we can add a clarification along the lines of like a seasonal flora investigation or report. Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll do that. Is that okay?
Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Shand.
It's really, how do we navigate having an application on one side and an exploration licence on the other, and some Crown land in between.
Thank you. Director of Operations?
Not really sure if that's a question. That's why we look at, and Cecilia mentioned before, that's why we look at each case on a case-by-case merit basis, for that very reason.
But it's a cumulative effect, having all of those things together, that we need to look at as well.
Thank you, Councillor Shand. Any further questions? Does this have any impact on water catchment areas or the river at all? That piece of land is very close to the Preston River.
Off the top of my head, Madam President, no. Like, it is, when you look at the location, it is further up the escarpment. However, we could have a look at the hydrology and see if there is any feeders into the Preston River catchment. So if you don't mind, I'll take that on notice. We'll have a look to see if there's any sort of, and I'll say documented tributaries rather than man-made drainage.
I'm just referring back to that catchment map we saw
Yeah.
this afternoon. It was clearly in that catchment area.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that.
Thank you. Right, any further questions? Thank you, councillors. Item 9.1.6, proposed speed zone zoning changes for the locality of Irishtown and Reserve and Collins Street, Donnybrook. Director of Operations, would you like to introduce the topic?
Thank you, Madam President. It's obviously a bit of a coincidence that we've got a speed zoning for the in way of the Apple Fun Park and also Asphalt Art Project on the same night. That, I can tell you that wasn't planned. It is a coincidence. And interestingly, both reports obviously play an important part in meeting council's objectives. Referring to the OCM back in May 2018, the applicant actually referenced that. It was actually interesting to read. So this report seeks to resolve the Apple Fun Park speed zone risks. Obviously, officers and Donnybrook Town teams and other parties have actually advocated for this speed reduction, which is now supported by Main Roads, which is fantastic. We're also obviously looking at, Main Roads have asked us to also consider the urban area speed zone risks for the Irishtown locality, given that we are well aware that there's quite a number of residents out that way now. We have records indicating 600 traffic movements a day. So it is quite a built-up area now and a lot of people. Accordingly, we ask Council to consider the recommendations put to them.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Moving to item 9.1.7, Council endorsement for the Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up Bushfire Risk Management Plan 24-26. Referred to the BRMP. Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. The BRMP is to be understated, is a very important document. So I'll paraphrase the executive summary and background. So the updated Donnybrook Baling Up Bushfire Risk Management Plan for 2024 to 2026 provides a structured approach to identifying, assessing, prioritising, monitoring and the treatment of bushfire risks within the Shire. Endorsement of this plan also ensures that the Shire continues to be eligible to access future mitigation activity funding, otherwise known as MAF, which is provided by DFIS. This funding has been instrumental in enabling the Shire to mitigate bushfire risk within its reserves. Since 2017-2018 financial year, the Shire has been awarded over 1.4 million through the MAF to perform mitigation works throughout the Shire. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Any questions? Councillor Glover.
So just to clarify, this is really just about putting in the BRM plan, but it's who gets to see or approve of the MAF?
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Madam President, if I may, the MAF is a separate application which is established primarily on the back of what the Bushfire Risk Management Plan is telling us. So that speaks to the funding application, which is normally one of the roles of the CESM and our joint MAF coordinator.
And the amount that we receive then drives us to prioritise.
Yes,
the
yeah. Well,
events.
so it's actually from the plan that actually speaks to our priorities, and from that plan we submit our funding request.
Yes.
And it again, like DFIS will review that funding request, but the OBRM use this MAF, also the Bushfire Risk Management Plan, as their primary document in assessing MAF.
Thanks.
May I ask just a follow-up one? So the
Councillor.
MAF doesn't come past council, that's just something separate that happens internally through the administration, is that correct?
Through the chair.
Yes.
That's correct, councillor.
Any further questions? Thank you, councillors. Now, moving into Director of Finance and Corporate, I think these have been recently posted, haven't they? The financials. So councillors may not have had time to read these. Shall we ask for any questions to come before the OCM, so that is it Steph will be presenting it at the OCM. Councillor Glover.
Given that we haven't had a chance to review any of these documents and they are as paid accounts as at 31 January, would the administration consider deferring this item and bringing it back to council next month?
I think what we just mentioned was that if we can read that document throughout this week and send any questions through, we'll have them answered prior to the OCM.
I did hear that, but I just thought for clarification for the people viewing at home, they don't get to hear the questions, we only get to write them. So I'm wondering if it would be considered to defer this item until next month so we have a chance to speak to it at the agenda briefing.
I will just say that we also have the opportunity to suspend standing orders and open up for questions as well at the OCM. CEO?
Can I provide clarity in regards to the timing of the supply of the reports? So 9.2.1 is the statutory requirement for the schedule of the accounts paid as at the 31st of January. They were supplied to that report and the attachment was part of the agenda that's already been distributed. So that was done within the existing timeframes. And then the next item, which I'm sure whether you want to segue into that, which is the 9.2.2, which is the Statement of Financial Activity Report as at 31st of July. That's the timing issue we've discussed with Council previously. And there's an opportunity for you to ask questions in the lead-up, and we're happy to read those questions out at the OCM and have the relevant officer present to discuss that. So there's open transparency.
CEO, I'm so sorry I said that I led that astray because I said that the transaction report wasn't provided. Sorry, I was one behind. Any questions? So we're all agreed that we'll have those items at the next meeting and we'll take questions. We'll suspend standing orders, take questions and then move into the item. Councillor Lindeman.
Could I just ask, could you not email the questions in?
Yes.
Then you have a list of them, then you read it out. You don't need to suspend standing orders, you just ask.
Yep.
Thank you.
Would you like to do that, councillors? Send questions in prior and we can read them out. Okay. Councillor Davey.
Just confirming, we can still ask questions on the mic, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So clarifying, if you have questions that you know in advance, you can send them in so that we're not catching staff on the hop. Plus, we'll also ask questions on the night. Okay, item 9.2.2, monthly financial report, we've just discussed. 9.2.3, local government ordinary election was pulled, wasn't it? Sorry. Yes, yep. That's correct. Yes. So is it 9.2.4 still? Or 9.2.3 now? Yep. 9.2.3, Council Plan, Biannual Progress Report, July to December 2024. Lauren, would you like to introduce this report?
Through the chair, thank you. So this report is really just a a best practice for the Shire to report on the progress against on the council plan on a biannual basis. And this report relates to the period between the 1st of July 2024 and 31st of December 2024. And council is just asked to receive the progress report as per attachment 1.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Davey.
Thank you. So items that are marked as deferred, such as the Reconciliation Action Plan, the Economic Development Strategy and the Internal Audit Plan, will they automatically be brought to Council for consideration in the 25-26 budget, or do they need to be moved by elected members to be back on the table for consideration in the 25-26 budget?
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Finance and Corporate.
Through the Chair, thank you. Yes, it's the intention that at the strategic workshop on Friday, that will be discussed as part of it. But all the intentions are every year, anything that has been deferred will roll over onto the next year. And I think it's best if when we do go through the review of the council plan, that we do either make a decision on keeping those and getting a budget for those, or removing them from the council plan itself.
Thank you. Any other questions? So that's 9.2.4. Councillor Glover, did you have a question on the item that was pulled? It was pulled because we needed... Yeah, sorry. I should have stopped and explained.
I didn't
I'm so sorry.
understand how the order got thrown out, and I was scrolling back through. So you pulled the item because...
CEO?
So look, thanks.
Sorry.
Apologies, and that we only took the decision to pull that item today, Councillor. You recall, as part of the agenda that was distributed, it referred to actually only 3 vacant positions coming up as part of the election. That was actually incorrect. And then obviously the associated quote to conduct those elections from the Election Commission was based on 3 vacant positions, when it's actually 4. And I might just ask Mr Clifford just to give a very quick update as to what the advice has been from the Electoral Commission and what the next steps and the timing for bringing it back for formal consideration of Council.
Thank you, CEO.
Yep, through the Chair, thank you. So we had advice from the Electoral Commission that it is indeed, well, we advised them that it was the 4 vacancies, confirmed that. And we had done that earlier on. However, they've only just recently got back to us to say that they can't produce a new cost estimate and agreement until after the state elections, just because of their resourcing and timing. So they're hoping to get that after the state elections. So aim is to bring it back in April. We do have 80 days on its 80th day prior to the election, so 30th of July, before we have to make a decision on whether it be a postal vote and who manages the returning officer.
Thank you. I have a question though. Did anybody else think that they might have got extra time for good behaviour?
I was going to ask another question actually on that.
Councillor Shand?
Other Band 3 shires reduce theirs from 9 to 7 councillors. Is that something up for discussion?
I'll throw that over to CEO. I think that has to do with your size, isn't it? Shire size? Or
Yes,
am I wrong?
part of the reform, and Mrs Clifford's across probably the detail, Shire President, so maybe just a little bit of an overview, because I understand that Councillor Glover did actually put that in as a question when the item was on the agenda. I'm just mindful that the item's no longer on the agenda, so maybe just a quick response.
Thank you, and through the Chair. So yes, as part of the reform, it has now allowed for councillors to reduce the numbers for the size of the population that the Shire of Donington Balingup has. We could be between 5 to 9 councillors. The decision would have to be an absolute majority decision, and then there's the process that would have to be in place, which is on the department's website if you'd like to have a look at that, and it would indicate that obviously the minister would need to approve it, and then the process further on down the track.
Do we know how long that process might take? No.
Councillor Glover?
Understanding that this isn't a current item, but would it, considering that we're coming back in April to talk about this again, but would it be advisable to be an elected member's motion if we were to consider reducing council prior to bringing this item back around the budget, etc.? Yeah.
Yes, we can. I won't take any more questions because it isn't on the agenda at the moment, so we'll leave it there. Okay. Moving into the CEO realm, 9.3.1, Walga Sustainable Energy Project. CEO, would you like to introduce this topic?
Just very briefly, thank you, Shire President. I guess in the interests of openness and transparency, given the confidential and commercial nature of this matter, just want to be very open that we did brief councillors, or the councillors who attended the workshop on February the 12th, around some of the detailed negotiations and how we arrived at coming to the recommendation. But I guess the officer's report, or my report, provides a summary of where we come from. So we're essentially just looking to move into phase 2 of a broader sort of aggregated energy purchase process through Walga. Council, or this Shire, is currently one of 48 local government project participants as part of phase 1, and that commenced on the 1st of April 2022 and is due to expire the 31st of March 2025. Walga, obviously looking to continue on the success of phase 1, ran a request for quotation project, a process for a new contract commencing the 1st of April, and just being very clear that due to the power use, that the Council Administration Centre and the Donnybrook Recreation Centre are the two contestable energy sites that would be covered as part of the phase 2 agreement. So a quick overview of the proposal. Obviously, the proposed way forward is not actually reducing our energy costs, but reducing our financial risks and that increased burden. And obviously, everyone in the room, and no doubt the ratepayers and residents, would know that the price of electricity has increased substantially over the previous years. So the idea behind this is getting the power and getting a group rate and a discounted rate moving forward for the 3-year period. So the most advantageous offer that came as a result from the request for quotation was received from Synergy, and it can be summarised as a 3-year contract. That part of the offer that is proposed is that there's a new time of offer band that allows for peak, midday and off-peak rates. It's unbundled pricing, so there is actually additional pricing as well as just providing the electrons. And then some value-added services that include an option to apply natural power to street lighting, of which we're not proposing to take that step as part of this recommendation. You can see that, that the preferred or the recommended contract or offer or response to request for quotation does require 100% take-up of the councils. And after talking with the relevant officer at Walga, they're confident that they will hit that 100% benchmark. However, in the event that that 100% benchmark isn't reached, then there is that fallback position that sort of starts to be detailed on the bottom of page 101 and the top of page 102. So, councillors, I guess there's two major limbs and reasons behind this. There's obviously the cost saving, or getting the benefit of scale in the purchase for the contestable energy sites for their 48 participating councils, but then the other part of it is the environmental outcomes, given the fact it's the Walga Sustainable Energy Project, whereas 100% of the power of the default position is for 100% of that power to be offset by the purchase of renewable energy certificates, or whatever the modern terminology is. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Davey?
Thank you. So what we're looking at here, we've got the total cost with 100% take-up, the total cost with 65% take-up, the fallback position, and the difference between those two costs being 21,000. But could we please get an indication of what the difference in running those two facilities, the cost of running those two facilities for a year, is between phase 1 and phase 2? So where do we go from in this financial year to 124,000 next financial year? From April.
Yep, so what's the delta between phase 1 and phase 2? Yep, I can provide that information at the OCM, not a problem.
Councillor Davey?
If that could also be related back to rates, you know, that there would be some impact on rates, just so everyone is going in with their eyes open. So my second question was, has there been confirmation that we are proceeding with an energy audit of these two facilities that could potentially be reducing our costs into the future?
No confirmation. However, councils will recall that as part of their budget provisions for the current financial year that there was $15,000 set aside for energy audit and investigation for 5 nominated sites. We went to market and sought a request for quotations from 5 qualified firms. We received 2 responses, and they were well over the $15,000 mark. So I guess in a way to cost engineer or try and get an outcome, I've sought quotations from the 2 respondees to the original request for quotation and sought their advice as to whether for those two contestable energy sites, whether $15,000 would cover an energy audit. I guess I'd also draw councillors' attention to and obviously it's not money in the bag at this stage, but there is an election commitment from the current member for Collie Preston to provide $120,000 for renewable energy initiatives at the Donnybrook Recreation Centre as well. So I guess it's fair to say that we're actively working in this space and looking at reducing the impact or the burden on the ratepayer of the increase in electricity prices.
Thank you, CEO. Any further questions? Okay, moving into 10.1.1, the VC Mitchell Park maintenance costs, which is an elected member motion from Councillor Bailey, and he's not attending tonight, and there's not a lot of information here, so I'll take any questions, but I'm not sure how we can deal with it. Councillor Lindeman? Sorry?
I was going to ask if you could just read it out, please,
Requests the Chief
Thanks.
Executive Officer to provide industry standards maintenance data on buildings similar to the VC Mitchell Park development, and requests this information in time for a possible motion for the March Council meeting. But it doesn't say what motion that would be, and it doesn't, I don't know. Perhaps we can open it up for questions at the meeting. Councillor Davey?
Just a timing question. So item 2, request this information in time for a possible motion for the March Council meeting. So if the decision was made to support this motion next week at the OCM, how many working days does that allow for a elected member's motion to be put in for the March Council meeting?
CEO?
I would need to reconcile, but as I think you're aware, Councillor Dave, it's 14 days that would be required for us to receive a follow-up elected member motion for the March OCM. I haven't got the maths and the calendar in front of me. However, if again, I don't want to step into the debate or step into answering the question that's an elected member motion that hasn't been considered, but that information would be fairly readily available if indeed the motion is passed.
Thank you. I have one question from Director of Operations. Would this be additional information to what we've put forward in the business case? Or similar information? Is the information readily available?
Thank you, Madam President. Just obviously, I don't have the benefit of asking the member of the detail, but I would assume the information was supplied with the Altus report. That goes into a lot of detail on the operating costs and ongoing maintenance costs. And there's also a sinking fund for the replacement, which we don't normally do. I think there is enough detail there in my mind, but it would be good to actually understand from the councillor if there's more information required, or a bit more detailed information that's not already in the Altus report that's made it into the business case, or in what's going to be our revised asset management plans. Obviously, a lot more information has gone into the asset management plans, which will be coming to council in time going forward as part of the budget presentations and workshops. So I guess, if there's more information needed above that, happy to try
That's what
and
we'd be
resolve.
looking for. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lindeman?
just to be on the front foot, from a procedural position, would you not need the person to be here to move it, or they need to allocate someone to move it?
That's correct.
They need to be.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, any further questions? We have no new business of an urgent nature. Then we move into the meeting, when the meeting will be closed to the public, and we will just slip out of live stream to discuss this topic and ask questions and then come back. But we'll just be coming back to close the meeting. There are no public resolutions to be read out, so it will just be for a closure. For those who are watching live stream, there's probably no point in holding in. Thank you, councillors. That brings us to the close of the meeting. We'll close the meeting at 7 p.m. and thank everyone in live stream for attending, and thank the gallery. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors.